computer. Are you ready to find your flow and flourish in your business? Welcome to Supercharged Sunday with me, Emily McHugh, your host and Supercharged Business Coach. Today, we will supercharge your flow with Michelle Milner-Eradhun, conscious business coach, sharing tips and guidance on the power of conscious deep time work, our topic today. Welcome, Michelle. It is so wonderful to have you.
Hello, Emily. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And Michelle, you're joining us all the way from Hertfordshire. Tell us where you're in Hertfordshire in the United Kingdom.
Yes, you can tell obviously by my accent. I'm not from near where you are. Yeah, I'm based just outside of London in the UK.
Excellent. Well, it's so wonderful. I'm so excited about this topic. I think it's very timely, and I know that you help entrepreneurs who are mainly service-based entrepreneurs to grow and scale their businesses, whether they're B2B or B2C, and you do it the conscious way. And I'm eager to learn about what the conscious way is and about your no framework and all the things that you share. So I think we need to dive right into this topic a little, but before we do that, let's just get a little bit of your background, how you even got into this area of focus of work.
Sure. I started about 13 years ago working. I was actually working at a property company at the time, and it was my first main job out of uni. And I graduated 2009, so 2008 crash. It was all a little bit of a strange time, work time. And I actually did theatre arts in uni, and then I ended up in a property company, which was totally different, totally opposite to what I'd studied. And I ended up in a property company and doing very quickly everything for them apart from the sales and lettings of property. But that included the operations of the teams, and that included the business development and some of the strategy. And I ended up developing different ways of working within that kind of small company. And being a very spiritual, very intuitive based person, I automatically blended those ways of doing things. And very consciously about what we were doing. So we've got a budget. We're not just going to spend it. What is it that we need right now? How are we going to be working? What systems do we need in place? And there was all of these things that were coming up. And I ended up just developing this kind of very conscious way of working throughout startups that I then went and helped, and then throughout the coaching that I did. And I didn't realize that it was a thing until I realized people didn't do it. And they were like, oh my God, this actually works. And these things actually work. And it meant that people were doing more effective work. They had a simpler business plan to work to, and they achieved results much quicker. And one of the most important things with that is it connected the teams more, and it made people happier in the work that they were doing because they had the time and the ability and the creative time to do their best work. And that's really kind of where it came from. And about 10 years ago, I had written lots of different kinds of notes in this little red book that I've got, this little red pad that it was like a brain dump pad. And I wrote down, know yourself, know your people, and know your business. And it was all around the inner knowing, the real deep knowing of knowing why you're doing what you're doing, who you're connecting with, who you can serve, how your business should be running the right way for you. And then when I went to start my business up last year, no framework was just, it was just the natural thing for me to want to do.
Well, I have to say that when you find your focus like you did and how it all came together, it shows that things take time, that sometimes it doesn't happen instantly, and you go through different experiences. Like you said, when you left university and then you went to where you worked, one thing led to the other, and you kind of, it was like revealed to you step by step. And then it just came together. And a lot of times people are trying to get all the answers immediately, and it doesn't quite work like that because it needs to flow so you can flourish. And yeah, see, there you go.
Yes, I love it.
Yes, absolutely. And to give it the time, have the patience to let things develop. So tell us about your no framework. What does it mean? How do people, what are some tips about that? And the whole idea of deep time work. Well, you know what? I'm asking you a lot of things at once. Let's break it down. So let's start with the conscious, the idea of being conscious of what you're doing. What are people doing that's not conscious? Are they being subconscious? What are they doing?
A very good way, it's a very good question. A very good way to differentiate between conscious work and non-conscious work is to ask yourself why you're doing it and how you feel about it.
Mm.
So there are loads of ways of working that people use. There's very old traditional corporate ways of working that, especially for entrepreneurs, which is the group of people that I work with, typically solo entrepreneurs or have, you know, very small teams and usually part-time members of their teams. And they do work in a very different way, and they can't take all. You can definitely learn things from bigger businesses, absolutely, for sure, but you can't implement the same strategies and the same working methods from a big company straight into a small company or as an entrepreneur. You just can't. It won't work. You don't need it. But people tend to go and rent office space when they're an entrepreneur, but they don't necessarily need office space. They spend months on a website. They don't need a big website. You know, there's all of these things that you do if you've got these bigger budgets and this different kind of goal set. You could have really big goals as a corporate company, but actually as a small company or as an entrepreneur, you don't need those 10 big goals. Actually, I teach that you need 2 or 3. If you're a solo entrepreneur, two big goals, 2 projects underneath those goals, and then 2 to-dos, because that in itself is a huge lot of work. So it's the framework around how to be willing to do the work that's really needed, which in a lot of ways is mindset work. A lot of the work that anybody does when they're an entrepreneur is the mindset work, because without being aware of who you are, what it is that you're trying to do and who you're connecting to, which is where the conscious part comes in. If you're unconsciously trying to build your business, you're out of sync and you're out of flow, and that's when things don't happen, and that's when you get overwhelmed and stressed and you just don't know where you're going. And one of the things about being in flow is you can be in flow in a really good way, and it feels good when it's like all these things are happening and they're coming in and we're feeling really great. But flow is also when you've got resistance and when other things are coming up. So if you're feeling triggered by something, if you're feeling blocks, and I'm a big believer of healing through your business. So your business, when you're an entrepreneur, brings up things that you can't even imagine they're going to bring up. It digs deep because you are on your own, and it can be a really lonely journey. And when you are in a state of, okay, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where my money's coming from. I don't know what to do with these clients that I've got right now. I don't know the best way to do this. I don't know how to do X, Y, and Z. You need some focus, because the flow there is feeling overwhelmed, and you have to allow that in to be able to move past it.
Yes, absolutely, for sure. And the thing about this journey is that for a lot of people, they're learning as they go, whereas we all have gone down this path. So if there are ways to simplify it, then why keep reinventing the wheel? Like, learn from those who have this experience. So I think that's excellent advice. So could you break down or give us an example when you talk about the 2-2-2, the hierarchy of the projects? What would be an example of that? What would that actually look like? Or a sample project that would fit under that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is it's a really good way of framing this. So thank you for asking. There's so you could have two main goals that you're focusing on, because with I'm sure that everybody has experienced the amount of noise online, especially if you've got an online only business. You should be doing this for your business. You should be doing this, grow your Instagram, grow your Facebook group, grow this side of your business, go and do this, go and take this class, take this, and there's so much noise. So 2 goals focuses you for 90 days on 2 things. It could be getting in 10 new clients and growing a community on Facebook. So you've got 2 examples there, just 2 if that fits into your longer term plan and your longer term vision. And then underneath that, you've got 2 to get 10 new clients. You've got 2 sub projects underneath that, only 2. So how am I going to get 10 new clients? I'm going to do, it could be anything depending on obviously the service, but let's take, I'm going to host this particular event. And it could be, I'm going to have 10 speaking opportunities, for example. And then those 2 there's a whole host underneath those 2, there's a whole host of things you could do to try and get an avenue into those sub-projects, what I call sub-projects. So it's okay, so how am I going to do this? Because it's the how that people struggle with. And there's a whole school of thought on when you know your why, the how comes, and there's an element of truth in that for sure. Because when you start taking action, I think there's a Rumi quote that says, when you take the first step, the way appears, something similar. And there's definitely being able to bring that into your world, but you also need to put your attention in the right place. So your time and attention, whatever you're doing, whoever you are, your time and attention are the most valuable assets you have, the most valuable assets. And that's why marketing companies will come in and try and grab your attention for something. That's, there's this whole, they're your most valuable assets. So where are you putting your time and attention? So in order to get these 10 clients, in order to do this event, in order to get this speaking gig, what are the things that I'm going to do? And that's when you really need to turn inwards and conscious. So what is it that I really want to do? How do I want to help people? I want to help people. I want to create a space for people where they feel comfortable to express who they are, to be authentic, to find their own way of styling themselves, to find their own way to be able to heal other people with their therapies. It's all of these different things. So what is it that's really going to make me want to get up in the morning and do what it is that I'm doing? Because if you get up in the morning and you think, oh, I just can't do today, every day, we all have bad days, but there's something not aligned there. If it doesn't feel right, something's not right. It might have worked for somebody else, but it won't work for you if it's just not in your guts, not there. There's always a way in. If you've got a vision and you've got a desire and a drive to do something, there's always a way through, and it's finding that way through. That's what works for you. And there's an element of being able to research and see what works for other people. But there's also, I don't think we do this enough, is sit back and say, what's going to work for me? Because we're scared we're going to get it wrong.
Yeah, and we're also so accustomed to getting permission and validation from others that we doubt our own, as you say, intuition, your own ability to assess for yourself. And that's part of the mindset work that you're referring to, that we get so caught up in that. So how do you, when you say you set these goals for 90 days, for example, to work on this, how then do you handle things that come up? Like you have fires to put out that inevitably arise. How do you manage to stay focused and stay on task with those goals when there are all these parallel activities competing for immediate attention?
Yeah, that's a very good point. There is so much trying to grab our attention, but when in terms of the allowing all of that to come in and seeing what it is and seeing how you feel about it. So there'll be some things that come in that you would really love to do, but it's just not the right time, and you park it. I just say park it, put it in the parking zone, park it. Don't drop it and don't leave it there, but just park it for somewhere you can come back to. If you have all these inspirations that come in, leave them there. If there's these fires that are coming in, work out why the fire started. Don't patch it. Don't put a plaster on it. Don't just patch it up. Work out the core of why that happened, because it will happen again. It will re-manifest somewhere down the line if there's a problem, if there's a gap, and it's about bridging those gaps. So if as a really simple example, if everybody that you're booking appointments with get on the wrong Zoom link, for example, simple example, don't always just send the right Zoom link. Don't email the right Zoom link every single time. Work out why the thing was wrong in the first place. So get to the core of the issues at the time, to then be able to know that those fires won't appear in the same way again. And when you're focusing, give yourself certain blocks of time. So this is where the deep work comes in. Give yourself certain blocks of time where you can focus on different things. There's been studies around this. It takes about 20 minutes to refocus in a deep level of focus on a task when you've been distracted. 20 minutes. So if you are focused 3 times in 1 hour, if you are unfocused 3 times in 1 hour, if you're distracted, then that's your hour has been fairly unfocused. You've only got some tiny snippets of work. Whereas if you were completely undistracted for that 1 hour, that one thing that you were doing, you would have been able to do it with absolute focus, clarity, and walk away from it with the certainty that you did the work that you needed to do and you laid that foundation for whatever it is that you're doing. So for me, putting that in, so you can I schedule personally, and I encourage my clients to do the same, is to schedule a couple of hours of MISC. So 2 hours in your diary of miscellaneous things that will come up that you can deal with. So I know I'm going to deal with that on Friday. I've got a block in my diary. I know nothing else is going in there. All of the bits that I need to capture. And for me personally, I love putting some music on, closing my door, like turning my phone off. I'll go into these are part of the deep work strategies, but turning my phone off on do not disturb. My laptop goes on, everything goes on, no notifications. So I can just say, right, get this done, and my whiteboard comes out. I love my whiteboard, and these are the things I need to get done today. These are the things I need to address, and just do them. Just tick them off one by one. And you know that every week you've got that scheduled time to just get all of those little bits done where you need to be giving it some attention, giving it some focus.
Oh, wow. Oh, yes, yes, yes. So now we're going to dive into how exactly do we do that? You just gave us a great tip of that miscellaneous time. I think that's a brilliant way to know that there's a place to put that, those things that are accumulating. Now, obviously, if it's something really, really, really important, like some tax, something or another, or some governmental, you know, that kind of hierarchy of things, you have to deal with that immediately, but you will know the difference, because it's knowing how to prioritize and rank what comes along your way. So do you have tips on how to do that? Structure what is urgent, what's important, what can wait till Friday, those 2 hours, or what has to happen like instantly, or just how to prioritize?
For me, this is definitely a conscious thing. So who's impacted? Who is impacted? If you've got a client that is unhappy, or there's a problem, or something's not been delivered correctly, or there's something with a client that is one of your clients versus needing to write your blog post that needs to go out, that is scheduled to go out tomorrow, but actually the impact is less. So, you know, some people and I've seen this happen, some people will say, well, I can't do that because I'm busy. Busy doing what? Writing the blog post? No, it's the avoidance of doing the thing that you don't want to do, which is dealing with the client that's saying, hey, I really need to speak to you because I'm unhappy about this thing. Doing the right thing and following the truth is not necessarily what feels comfortable, it's what feels true. And it's who you impact. What's the impact of that? Because the impact of that is actually somebody who is quite upset. And it makes no difference whether you agree with them, whether who's right, who's wrong, and there's no judgment. That person is upset, or that person needs some support in that moment. They're the ones that are impacted. So to me, it's all about, that's just a simple example, but it's the impact. So where's the impact? And that's how you prioritize.
Actually, that's an excellent example, because the whole idea of your business is to get clients and grow your business. So if you have an unhappy client, that is that's a definite priority, because that's why you're in business in the first place. And so that is, I think that's really important to, and also maybe another way to look at it as well. It's like, who's feeding you? How do you put food on the table? These are the people who help you do that. And so unless you want to go hungry a couple of days, you may want to do that, right? So it's like, it really comes close to your basic human needs which are linked to those priorities.
Yeah, absolutely. And we avoid things just naturally that we are afraid of. So we stay in our comfort zone, and it's not necessarily because you're not good at doing that thing or because you're being rude. Quite often it's not because you're being intentionally rude or any kind of malice. It's there's a deeper resistance to that confrontation. And honesty goes a long way. There is nothing wrong with saying, I'm really sorry, I didn't realize that was going to happen. Let me sort it out for you. You know, there's just being able just to release it all. And that is, again, going with the flow of what's coming in. And again, we might not like it in those situations, but actually when we go through, not try and go around, under, sideways, whatever, when we go through those difficult situations, that's when we start to flourish. That's when things start to really, we get that inner strength. We can tap into that I can deal with anything feeling that you get when you've just done something that you don't like doing or that you don't want to do. That's when you get that feeling. That's when that spark really starts to light up. And it is that mindset work. So working out why you don't want to do the thing that you're avoiding. And that's quite important with conscious business.
That is so key to the heart of the whole matter here. I think that when people go into business or they go into entrepreneurship, they might expect, even though they know it's not true, that everything should work out the way they want it to. Everything should just flow perfectly. And we all know that it couldn't be further from the truth. that you're going to have no end of obstacles and no end of challenges. So why not embrace that upfront as an absolute expectation that these things are going to arise, so that you can condition your mind to be prepared for it? That you will have an unhappy client one day, you will have a missed shipment, you may have some challenge along the line. Look at the times we're in now, supply chain issues, people can't get their products to market, all these things. What are you going to do? Those are the times we're in. And kind of go with it and get creative about it. So I think that's one of the fundamental aspects of shaping our thought process, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah, it takes practice. It takes practice and it takes mistakes. And we live in a world where to be successful, you have to look right to other people. And as an entrepreneur, one of the biggest, most powerful things we can do is to change that stigma. We can change the way we interact with other people, because we make the calls. And it's so important to not follow those traditional patterns. You know, you don't have to have a system where, you know, you've got a ticket for a client that comes in and it's all done by email. You can pick up the phone. You know, you can build those relationships. We can change, and whatever feels right for you to do in that moment. You know, the moment will tell you. If you're on a call with somebody and you just want to go, do you know what, I'm really sorry, but your old corporate head is saying, you know, don't ever take the responsibility. It's very common. You can change that. You have the ability to change that in an instant. And what's the worst that can happen? So if you're thinking about this and you're in fear before picking up that phone call, what's the worst that can happen? Honestly, write it down. What's the worst that can happen? And that in itself is still not true. That hasn't happened yet. That's the story that's playing out. That's the expectation. That's the assumption. But it's not what's happening right now. Right now, all you have to deal with is a phone call and to speak to somebody and connect with them. Those are the two things that you're dealing with. And it's breaking down all of the conditioning that we have for the feeling of success. And being successful means you have to be showing all the time that you're doing these, what you perceive as amazing things. But actually, what is success to you?
To define that, right? To stop and truly define it for yourself. As opposed to some external impetus on that. So I am eager to know, how do we go through the process of the deep work? Because with all this being said, it all leads back to this, to how do you, with all the things going on around you, how do you carve out that space and really protect it? I think, because there's so many intruders, barbarians at the gate, trying to get through that precious time and really take it away from you. So yeah, how do we do it? How do we protect it? And how do we dive into structuring it to make sure it happens?
Yeah, okay. I love talking about this. And when I've put this into companies and when my clients have used it, it's been a game changer. Within a couple of weeks, within a week, people see the difference. Because it is such a game changer to be able to take that time for yourself. And it's not self-care, it's a necessity to be able to take that time for yourself in your business. And it's mentally for you, for the little wins that you might have at the end of the week. I did this and this week. I'm really proud of myself. It's so important. And the first thing to do is to cleanse everything in your inbox, in your social media feed, in your house. Cleanse your notifications. A big one is notifications. We all have a million notifications that come up. Our phone lights up and we're like straight away looking at the phone, just automatically. It's just in us now. You know, a notification comes up on the laptop and we're looking because we're so busy, and we do see it and we do it subconsciously and we just do it automatically now. So cleanse everything that does not fit in with who you want to be, how you truly want to feel, and what it is you're working for, what your vision is. So cleanse everything out. And that can take some time. I always say, just do it as you go. So if you're in your notifications, if you don't need those notifications, just spend 20 minutes changing all your notifications. If you don't need things to come up on your screen lock so that it lights up, then take it off. You know, cleanse your email list. If you have 50 emails that are just junk emails coming in, unsubscribe if you don't want them. You can always put another email address in, or have them automatically put an auto move on your emails to put everything into a folder. And then that half an hour scheduled once a week at 3 o'clock on a Monday afternoon is your time to go through those emails. So you schedule that in. So you cleanse everything that doesn't doesn't work in your life right now for the foreseeable future. And there's an element of being structured here and having that framework to be able to find that deep work time and that flow, but also being able to be flexible with things that come in that you want to welcome in. So it's about keeping that balance as well, because you need to keep that balance, otherwise you just get stuck in the same rut and you sometimes come away from your intuition and you feel disconnected. So cleansing everything is really important. Scheduling the time and the time of day that is best for you. So for me personally, I love the mornings because it's quiet. I love doing a meditation in the morning and I can hear the birds outside and it's quiet and it's just that start of the day. It's the light that comes at the beginning of the day, because that inspires me. Personally, that inspires me. So I love doing my deep time work after that. Some people love it late at night. I know a lot of coders and a lot of web designers that I know love the early hours of the morning. So find time that works for you. And it could be 2 hours a day, every day of the week, or it could be an hour a day, 2 days of the week. Find time, depending on how busy you are and what's going on in your life. If you're a mumpreneur and you've got a lot less time, then still schedule this time, but make it work for you. So schedule the time in your diary that works for you. And that can be tested to do one thing 1 week. If it doesn't feel quite right, change it. See what works. Spend a couple of weeks seeing what works for you. And then coming back to what we were talking earlier about the business planning, know what you are working for. So what is it that you're working on? And make sure that everything that is on your to-do list feeds directly into that plan. It's so essential. It feeds directly into that plan. If it's something that's like second degree, what I would say second degree away, don't really question why you're doing it. If it's third degree away, it definitely shouldn't be in there. So make sure that everything you're doing is feeding into that 90-day plan, which ultimately goes into your 1 year, your 3 year, your 5 year vision. And once you've done that and you've scheduled your deep time work, you've got, say, 2 hours on a Monday morning that you're going to do some deep time work. So in that time, you need to be producing content for the Facebook group that you've got, because that's one of your goals, to grow your audience, your Facebook group audience. So you've scheduled that time and you know what you're going to do with that time. So everything's prepared in advance. And then when you have that time, when you know that you need content on these topics, because this is the thing that people are struggling with right now. So I want to work on being able to, for me, for example, it could be helping people create their 90-day plan. So what are the things that I'm going to that's what I'm doing with my time. So I'm creating 1 video, 1 blog post, and 1 podcast, for example. And so that's what I'm going to do with my set block of time on a Monday, and only do those 3 things. So everything goes on do not disturb, everything, no distractions. And the no distraction thing is so important, because it's the 20 minutes to regain your deep focus time. And that's the essential thing. Don't be distracted by things that you think aren't distractions, because everything that takes you away from what you're doing is a distraction. And then do it. And for me personally, I love music when I do it. I put my earphones in so that I feel like I'm in a bubble, and that really helps me. But the important thing actually with this is music with no lyrics, so you don't get distracted by the music. And I just do that. I do that 1 thing, because what happens is you go into it and you get some ideas, and then you start drilling a little bit deeper on the ideas, and then you go even deeper. And it's that even deeper bit, which is where that magic starts to happen. And you don't get there if you're distracted, because you have to come back in again. It's like finding the core of what the bit of magic that you want to create. And you're just trying to get into it. If you get distracted, you go back out again. And if you keep going and you just go that 1 step more with that extra 20 minutes, for example, if we've got an hour, then you really get to the core of it. And that really helps to go, that's where you get the aha moments. That's where you get the innovation, the creativity, the inspiration. And it's carving out that time. And you play around with the schedule, and that's fine. But find the time to be able to get to doing your best work, and doing your best work on the things that matter most to you.
So Michelle, once you get into that special deep time space, I know you just shared some tips in terms of the headphones and getting the distractions down, but sometimes when we sit there, we're like, let me see, your mind may start to wander, you might start to yawn, you Lord knows what else might start to take over. You get hungry, I don't know, something. How do you get rid of those things that are trying to, again, invade?
Very good point. I think as well as just to mention, prepare your space before. So if you know that you want to have breakfast before, put that in there, make sure that that's done. If you want to, make sure you've got your water, make sure you've got everything you need with you to set up. So don't think I've got my deep time scheduled and spend 20 minutes setting up your desk. The deep time starts from when you sit down. And again, this is where the conscious business stuff comes in. If you sit there and you're like, this just doesn't feel right to be doing this topic in this way, for example. So maybe my audience don't need a 90-day plan. What is it that I can help them with? But you consciously go inwards. That's still time for you to go deep. Still time for you to go deep and work out, okay, so what do my audience need right now? What are they struggling with? What content can I produce that will help them? What products can I create that I think will really help my customers go from A to B in a more simple way, or really do something of service if that's what you're working on, if you're working on your products. If it doesn't feel right and something's not aligned, use that time to work out what's wrong and see what's wrong and where you can go back. And one good tip, if your mind wanders and your mind goes, is to refocus your attention on something that's physical. And I tend to use, so this can work anywhere, actually, in any situation. I tend to use my own body for this, so you can do it anywhere. So if my mind is thinking about something that's totally out there, nothing to do with what I'm working on, I'll come back to myself. So I will, and this shows you the power of your attention. So I'll say to myself, okay, where's my left shoulder? And my attention will come back in from wherever it's got to in my daydream somewhere, because I'm a daydreamer. I do this a lot. It comes back in. So I'll feel my left shoulder, and then I'll say, okay, where's my right knee? And then feel my left knee, feel my lower back, feel my neck, feel my right hand, feel my left thumb. And when you do that yourself, you can see how you control. And one of the only things you control is where you put your attention, which is why it's so valuable. And when you do that exercise, you can see how quickly you can maneuver your own attention. And you can bring it back. And it helps to put it to something physical.
So it's a kind of a grounding and centering exercise that you do. So once you do that and you've identified these body parts, then what happens?
Usually it stills the mind, because you're bringing all of the stuff that's happening in your frontal cortex, you're bringing all of that analytical brain, and you're moving where you're thinking from in your own brain. So you are no longer thinking in an analytical way. You're doing something that is real, something that's tangible. Because if you're daydreaming, if you're thinking something, it's not real. It's not what's there in the moment. So when you come back to something that's tangible, and then it's tuning in with what it is that you're working on. Because when you get into a flow of doing this and you start being able to, I think, train yourself to concentrate for that level of time, because that can be, when you're not used to doing that, it can be like, I'm so used to every 10 minutes getting up and making a cup of coffee. It's breaking that habit. And when you know you need to break that habit, it's like, okay, so what I'm doing right now is giving myself this time, because I want to make this work and I really care about what I'm doing. So I'm gonna break that habit. So I don't need to because the getting up and doing something else is distraction from what it is that you're doing.
So what is your optimal recommendation for the deep time work? Is it a 2-hour segment, or is it what works best for you? What are some guidelines or best practices, if you will, in setting how much time to allot?
Yeah, I mean, this varies completely. I don't think I've got any one person that's doing this that is exactly the same. I recommend doing it, if you can, in 3-hour blocks. 3 times a week in 3-hour blocks. It's a 3-3. It's actually a 3-3-3. 3 times a week, 3-hour blocks, 3 tasks, three what I would call sprints within those hours. So you've got 3, you can have up to 3 things that you do. And within, there's something called the Pomodoro technique that also works really well for this kind of thing. And it was designed by, I think it was designed by a guy in Italy who used a Pomodoro tomato to time his sprints that he would work for. And he used to put them for 50 minutes, and that was his optimum. For me, my optimum is an hour. So I have an hour, and then a 5-minute break if I need it, an hour, 5-minute break, an hour, and then I'm done. The important thing is not to get distracted in that 5 minutes. That 5 minutes is for a drink or to go to the toilet or just to step away from my desk, get up, move your body and sit back down again. I work like that on an intense level. Some people don't want to do that much time, but I find that I get more done in those blocks than if I was to try and do 3 separate hours through the day. I get better quality work done. It's the quality of work that you do during the deep time that's the result. It's the quality of the work. So 3 hours in 3 blocks, 3 times a week, if you can, and play around with what you're scheduling. This is really great for creation of content and things like that. It's really great because you can then really get in a zone, and it's really accessing your zone of genius and being able to be able to do the best work, but also learn and grow and evolve your own work in your own way. And that's really important, because that's when you really start to bring out the inner you, your own purpose, and you start to get more of a feel about what's working.
So what do you recommend people do? Like let's say you've done that 3-hour block for one day, then what does the rest of your day look like to support or reinforce it? How do you manage the rest of the day?
Most of the time, I find that this is how people get more done in less time, because you do the work that matters most. You've already got your plan, that you know that you've got a strategy in place and this is what you're working on. These are the most important things, because when we work all day, every day, chances are we're not working on the most important things. So if you do this, the chances are, depending on your business plan, obviously, and depending on your goals, the chances are you will have more free time for yourself. And ultimate freedom is what we're all after, for something else, to go and do some learning, or to do some exercise, or to do something else during the day. If you do that deep time work in the morning, it allows that time, more freedom in time that's outside of that deep work, which is one of the beauties of it.
So what do you say to somebody? I know a lot of people may suffer from ADD or ADHD, where they get distracted, or it's considered like a condition. What do you say to someone like that, who may have more of that extra challenge with implementing what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most important thing is to stay distraction free in terms of any outside influence. So if the distraction is coming from you, if you need to get up and move around the room, then keep that kind of sacred space for you. Don't check your emails or check the phone, or allow the outside influence to come in. Stay in that protected space that you've created for you. Allow that space for you, because it might be that you need to get up and come back down again, but that getting up and come back down again, if you stay in a zone, is still going to be super helpful. Still going to be really super helpful to keep you going, or to keep some ideas in. Sometimes we just have one idea, like one thought, one bit of inspiration that's a game changer, and we're like, that's what I'm going to do. And allowing this time allows those thoughts to come in, because you're not then going to do something else. You're allowing yourself to just be. So just be as you are. And this is where the alignment of being, so how you are and how you are just being in you and what you do, this is how it aligns up.
And also with that too, I think it's where the personal choices come in, that maybe, like you said, someone might be able to handle 3 hours. Can they start with an hour? Can they start with 15 minutes? Start in some increment that you can commit to, and then grow it from there. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I ended up just naturally wanting the space, and then realizing that it was a thing. I knew I needed the space, because that was how I work. Because when I'm in something and I'm in flow, there's no thought. There's no thought that comes in. I'm just doing something because it feels like it's the right thing to do. So if something comes in and distracts me, I've gone and I can't remember. So I used to always protect my time like that, because I knew it was important to do that for me specifically. But it works for people that have different ways of working as well, because you can do it for an hour. You don't need to do it for 3, and that can be really intense, or you can build up and you can chop and change. The most important thing is the distraction free.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to give yourself, it takes about 20 minutes to get into a deep focus state, and then it takes 20 minutes to go back into it. So as long as you're giving yourself, I would say 45 minutes minimum. Half an hour, if you've only got one small thing to do, half an hour would be great. But if you can do 45 minutes and you've got that little bit of extra time to just be in that flow, then it would be really good. And you start really seeing it's kind of compound results. You start seeing over a short period of time, over a month, you will see the amount that you've achieved and how you feel about your work, which is so important. It's how you feel about what you've achieved.
Do you have certain tools or tools that you use, certain apps or programs that you recommend as far as helping people implement this strategy?
I do three things. I mainly do three things. One is do not disturb on my phone, which is the best thing ever. It's the best thing ever. One is do not disturb on my laptop, on my Mac. Mm-hmm. And the other is Asana. So I use Asana to, everything goes in there. I'm a daydreamer. I am one of these people that will just get lost, and I'll think about something, and I could be there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, an hour. I could be there for a while just because I'm daydreaming about something. It's just part of who I am. Mm-hmm. So when I've got those three things, it means that I know Asana's got all of my things that I need to do. I know on Monday, so on a Friday afternoon, I'll schedule my next week. So I have a whole bunch of to-dos, and then it's what's the top three things for Monday, top three things for Tuesday, top three, and sometimes they change. I think, do you know what, actually, that's not right. I'm going to do that next week. And that is perfectly fine. But then when I come to my deep time work, I know that I'm doing these 1, 2, or 3 things. And that really helps me to just stay focused and do the things that matter most, not always what's comfortable, not always what we want to do. Because when you push yourself, and when you want to up level, when you want to grow your business, you want to stay in the same familiar pattern, and it doesn't always feel good to be doing some of the work that you have to do, to reach out, to pitch, to speak, to do these things, to invest financially in different things. It doesn't always feel good, but it feels true. And it's finding that what feels true and following that and implementing that in your deep time work, because it will help, because you'll have the reason that you're there.
Exactly. So here's the one last question I need to ask. I think it's the big elephant in the room: procrastination, that thing that keeps you away from that desk. What is your main tip to overcome procrastination?
The core of this one is to identify why.
Identify why you're procrastinating.
Yeah. What is it that you're avoiding? It is 9 times out of 10. I'm almost tempted to say 10 times out of 10, it's an emotion. And this is really good conscious business practice. What am I avoiding? Am I learning? Have I spent time learning, taking free masterclasses, taking courses, spending money on courses, and coaching or whatever it might be, on learning how to implement a marketing strategy or how to do my marketing strategy? If you've been doing lots of things around that, and you're procrastinating, I love to call procrastinating, which a lot of people fall into, especially online, especially through COVID, because people had more time to do this kind of thing. And you're procrastinating because you're like, I know, let me go and Google how to do this. Let me go and YouTube how to do this. And that can be really valuable in certain snippets. But if you're procrastinating and you're constantly looking outside for something instead of taking action to move it forward for you, you're avoiding something. It could be the fear of failing. It could be the fear of being judged. It could be, some quite sort of deep and sometimes quite painful things to deal with. But you create that safe space on your own to be able to identify honestly and truly why you are avoiding doing it. What am I not looking at here? What am I trying to avoid feeling?
Yes.
And then just by bringing awareness, just to kind of give some help if anybody has that. And I've had it plenty of time. Everybody, I think, enjoys the procrastination because it gets them away from, it's the roundabout way, it's the detour. But if just by bringing awareness to what it is, you don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to then go on another journey to find out why you feel like this. There's nothing wrong with feeling whatever it is that you feel, but just by bringing awareness and being conscious of why you're avoiding something, quite often you could say that's where you can start saying, I'm scared because I don't want to fail because I'm worried about being judged, but I can do it anyway, because you are taking control back. You're more aware, especially if you're an analytical brain. If you like to know the reasons why, that really helps.
Yeah. So Michelle, what would be your a resource or a booklet? I know you've shared some tips like Asana and so forth. What would be like a book that you would recommend that someone could go and read to gain more insight on this whole process, or that would be a good reference?
Yeah, two come to mind for this, and there's two books that I love. One of them is it's The One Thing. I think it's I've got it down here. Gary Keller. It's Gary Garykeller. His book really pins down the one most important thing, and he talks about what's the quickest way for me to get from where I am to where I want to be. What's the one thing that I can do that makes everything else not needed or reduces the everything else that I need to do? So what's the one thing? What's the biggest one thing? And it's a really good principle to employ.
What's the name of his book?
It's called The One Thing.
Oh, The One Thing. All right.
Yeah.
That's very easy to remember. Okay. And what was the other book you had in mind?
The other book is it's a spiritually based book. It's a self-development based book. And it's like it's called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
The Four Agreements.
And yeah, he talks about 4 agreements which we have with ourselves and through our own conditioning. And the 4 agreements are around attachments, about not taking things personally, about being careful with how you speak to yourself and other people, so being careful with your word, and about always trying your best. And your best one day is not necessarily the same capacity as it is another day, but your best 100%, whatever that might be in that day. And those 4 principles are really brilliant for guiding your own personal journey.
Excellent. Yeah, what's the name of the author again? Don, what is it?
Don Miguel Ruiz. Ruiz.
Okay, Don Miguel Ruiz. Okay, excellent. And finally, your number one tip that you want us to implement today, of all the amazing things you've shared and the wonderful insights, what is the one thing that we need to do right now to get into this deep conscious, access the power of deep work time?
Yes, I would love if there's one thing to take away from our talk today, one thing that can really help you almost immediately, is create the space that you need to do your best work. Create the space that you need. And that space could be mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. Create the space that you need to do your best work, because the world needs it.
That means off to IKEA I go.
I'd love an IKEA shop.
Inspire you for sure. Create the space you need to do your best work. I think that's absolutely brilliant. And Michelle, how can people find you online and really access the amazing insights that you share and how you work with your clients?
Yeah, you just Google No Framework, KNOW, a framework, and you can find my website and get in touch with me there. I'm also on Facebook, just No Framework again. And I've got a community on Facebook, a group on Facebook as well, that is a community of soulful entrepreneur women who are doing this thing that we call life and entrepreneurship in a soulful based way. So you can find me on my website or via Facebook.
What's the name of your Facebook group?
Soulful Warrior Entrepreneurs is my Facebook group.
Aha, there you go. Okay, excellent. Well, Michelle, this has been so refreshing and so encouraging that we as entrepreneurs, we have these tools, there are techniques, there are ways to break it down, make things more manageable. So I really appreciate your highlighting them. And I know a lot of people will benefit today from hearing what you've shared. So thank you so much, so that we can absolutely, so that we can flow and flourish. And I, for one, I always, as I say, I always take copious notes, because I very much intend to put it into practice and also to put it on my blog. So after this, look out for my blog on superchargedwithemily.com/blogs, and you can read more, you can watch the video, and also get all the contacts for Michelle as well, how to connect with her on her website. And I encourage you to, if you're not a part of our Supercharged community, you can sign up for the Supercharged weekly newsletter that comes out, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I think I have it written here somewhere, like right there. Subscribe and don't miss any of these wonderful episodes of Supercharged Sunday. So till next time, stay supercharged and see you soon. Bye, everybody.